Hey team, how are you? And welcome to The Experience with Rehman Cee, where we talk to real people about real stories on real life. So I've got a wonderful lady here called Chewii. Chewii, how are you?
I am great. How are you, Rehman?
I'm absolutely awesome. And so, we go into real conversation, and I want to welcome you aboard. Thanks for hanging out with me. Where are you?
So I'm actually in South Florida. I am close to Miami, and I've lived here for 3 years now. I'm originally from Montreal, Canada, but my father is American, so I get to have dual citizenship. Yay.
Yeah, awesome.
So I get to travel back and forth. So for now, I'm settled in South Florida.
Yeah, you're rotating the seasons, right? When it comes to hot and cold. Yeah.
Yes, I was supposed to actually go to Montreal this summer. A friend of mine is getting married, and I normally go and see my family during the summer. But with everything that's going on with COVID, I decided to kind of reschedule my trip. So
Yeah. You can always drive there.
I could, but my partner is American and the border is closed, so they'll only let me in. So
okay, so you can't drive across the border anymore?
You can if you're a Canadian citizen, but right now the border's closed to anybody else until I think September, the first week of September. I think they've extended it.
Yeah. So what's your claim to fame?
My claim to fame at the moment is truth. Speaking truth, representing truth, being truthful to myself, to my friends, my family. That is what I represent.
Okay, so I was going to ask you what your message to the world would be. What would your message to the world be?
To live in your authenticity and be true to yourself, because there's only one you. You are unique, and you are here to create some type of purpose, with everybody involved. So if you don't play your part, then we lose out on that strength and power. So I would say, live in your truth and be true to yourself, and so that you can deliver a life-driven purpose.
Okay, so how did this philosophy evolve? How did you get to this conclusion? Let's go back a little bit. Let's go to the beginning, shall we, and figure it all out. So talk to me about your parents and your grandparents, and what was your parents' parenting style with you?
My parents had a very balanced parenting style. My mother was very sensitive, very kind, very patient, and my father was strong, would discipline me and would kind of humble me. I was afraid of my dad in a healthy way, not physically abusive type of way. And so if I was acting up with my mother, or I was trying to take advantage of her softness, then she would be able to use my father and say, hey, I'm going to tell your father. And then that would put me in check. So I think that allowed me to kind of still hear their voices as I grew older. When I started to decide for myself as an adult, I would hear my father's voice. And I'm really proud of where I come from my family, my parents. So I never wanted to embarrass them or do them wrong. I was always striving to make them proud, and while still living true to myself. So I think that helped a lot in the way that I approach life now.
Yeah. Are you the eldest, the only one?
I have an older sister. She's 4 years older than me.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So what about your grandparents? Did you have a good relationship with them?
Yes. So my mother is white, French Canadian, and my father is American, Black from South Carolina originally, grew up in New Jersey. So I had two completely different families to relate to, right? So my grandparents on my mother's side, my grandfather on my mother's side was already passed away by the time I was born. So I had a grandmother. Her mother was very close to us. We lived across the street from each other. She would babysit me throughout. She passed away when I was 13, I think, 13 or 14. So she passed away then. But until that point, she was completely in my life, and just a great example of a grandparent that loves her grandchild. And she was very active. She was on a bowling league, so she would let me come and check out her bowling league and play. And yeah, I mean, I have nothing, but great memories from that. And then on my father's side, my grandparents were very loving, very giving. I would see them maybe once every 2 months when we would drive to New Jersey from Montreal when I was growing up, and they would always spoil me. And they just had a lot of wisdom, the way that they grew up, in America in the 20s and 30s and 40s, and coming from a poor background, it just gave me a different perspective, and that appreciation of what I have and what my parents were able to give me came strongly from looking at them and hearing their stories.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about your mum. Describe her personality.
She's very classy, very graceful, very kind, very tolerant. Always told me to be tolerant if I didn't like something or somebody, or I was complaining about something, just Lena, have tolerance, be patient with people. And she worked for a big company, a corporation for over 35 years. She worked every day, and took care of us, came home and cooked dinner every night. We would have dinner together. I grew up where we sat at the table and had dinner together, and she would try new recipes, and she would get us involved in whatever I wanted to eat or to have growing up. She would, make it happen. And I grew up very healthy. She wouldn't let me buy certain things at the store, so I had to sneak to school and go try to exchange stuff for the candy I really wanted. So she had perimeters that I think really helped me grow into a well-rounded person.
Yeah, and your dad?
My dad is the type of person that can make anybody love him, and that is his goal. He makes sure that anybody in the room, not only they notice him, but he pays attention to them. When you're talking to my father, you feel like he's only speaking to you, and he just has that energy. He calls himself a shaman. He is quite healing. We go to him with our problems, and he comes with a very logical and heartful responses, so he's kind of the rock. I get that from him. Speak with your head held high, and speak, looking at somebody in their eyes when you're speaking to them, and just stay true to yourself, and always striving for us to get better and stronger, and again, a kind person.
So no trauma for you?
No, not for me. Thank goodness. No, I've heard many stories. Some of my lovers and peers and friends, some of their lives have not been as beautifully crafted. I mean, everybody's story is beautiful, right? But I've lived one without trauma so far, and I thank God. And so I want to put out that energy into the world and into the collective vibrations of Earth as much as I can, because I know that a lot of people, cannot relate to how I grew up. So it's so important for me to use that strength to give it to other people and to use it in my art,
Talk to me about Montreal. How has it shaped you? What is it like to live in Montreal and be raised in Montreal?
Montreal is a beautiful city. Our transit system is amazing. So I was early on the train and the bus. Safe city. It was great to grow up with that French influence. So I grew up speaking both languages, so I was able to take part in the French population as well as the English population. I loved having French food and just having two perspectives on how people view the world, because languages make you view the world somewhat differently. You know, there's somewhat of a romantic element when you speak French or you speak Spanish or Italian. So I think that was important when I was growing up.
Are you saying the Canadians or the English aren't romantic?
Oh, of course they are, but you know, the Spanish way of, it's just a way of speaking that makes it, you know, there's this passion when they talk. So I love that about my French Canadian brothers and sisters. You know, I always appreciated that French element when I was growing up with baguettes and escargot, and you know, it was fun. I got to see how, you know, I just feel like I got to see a different side of what I wouldn't have seen if I grew up maybe in just English speaking countries. So
yeah, and I've been to Montreal a few times. I've thoroughly enjoyed that place. It's very, very chic in certain parts. Yeah, and it's got a lot of history, right?
A lot of history. A lot of fashion comes out of Montreal. You know, a lot of elements around the world that you see now on you know, in stores and on fashion. So I love Montreal. I loved growing up there, but I knew that when I reached 18, I wanted to come to America because even though I love the city, the opportunities for artists weren't really healthy there. You know, it was all about the French music, and I didn't quite want to do French music. I've always written and expressed myself in English. So I knew that at 18 I wanted to go and live in America and explore those opportunities.
Yeah. What kind of careers did your parents have?
My mother was an executive assistant for, she worked in PR at Imperial Tobacco and Imasco, which is a tobacco company, one of the biggest ones in Canada. And my father was a computer technician.
Okay, so IT and kind of operations administration. Yeah. Okay, cool. So talk to me about your journey. How's it evolved from childhood to now? What's been the stepping stones?
Musically?
Your journey.
Okay.
And the music comes within that.
It does. Yes, it does. Well, I started singing when I was 12, and I think that's a good place to start because it kind of has given me the path that I've been on ever since then, right? So I've always been in love with music. Whitney Houston was the first singer that I really embraced and loved and was a huge girl fan for. So I started singing when I was 12, and the singing teacher that I got was an opera singer. So she taught me classical and opera. I was going in there to sing some R&B and some Brandy and Monica, but you know, she had another thing for me, and I'm so grateful for that because she opened my eyes and ears to opera and classical music. And so,
at what age were you singing? At what age did you realize that, you know, I've got some sort of passion for singing, or you know?
Well, from about 10 to 12, I was exploring the arts. So my mother had me in figure skating. She had me in ballet and jazz and tap. And so I was exploring these things, gymnastics. And then when I started to take my first few singing lessons, I realized, oh, this is actually what I want to do. This is where I see myself excelling. And, you know, skating is great and I'm good at it. And dancing is not really my thing, the way that, you know, it's structured dancing. But singing and music, I just keep on wanting to do it. I come home and I practice, and this is where I want to be. So I gave up all of the other, I put them to the side, all the other activities, and I focused on music. So I'd say I was discovering it around 10, 12. And at 12, I said, okay, this is really what I want to do. And I continued up until I was 18, and I applied to go to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I went to New York City first. So I did a year in New York at their New York campus, and then I did 2 years at their Los Angeles campus. I moved to LA when I was 21. and moved there. And there I studied musical theater and music theory and dance and acting. And for a while I was thinking, well, maybe I might go and try to be an actress full time and put the music to the side. And when that goes off, then I can, bring the music element into it. But I realized that music was just tugging at my heart. And so after a few years of being in LA and, while I was in LA sidebar, I was a party girl. I was having a good time. I was at the clubs. I was just, I was young. I was 21. So I was, out with the celebrities and having a good time. So, music was there and acting was there, but I was just kind of like in a discovery period of just having fun. And
So what was your identity at that point?
I've always been
certain of yourself. Have you always been certain of yourself?
I have been insecure about my voice for a very long time. My insecurities stem from I did a talent show when I was younger, and my father, like I said, I wanted to sing R&B. I think I was like 13, 14, but my father made me sing "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina," which I sang beautifully, and all the parents loved it, but all the kids were like, "Oh my God," and made fun of me for like years to come, which became a funny joke at the end, because it's like, Lena sang "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina," and the song was like 7 minutes long at the talent show. So that was like, but at the same time, I became a bit popular at school, and it was just a funny thing that had happened, So and then I went to musical theater and we're around kids that could just like sing incredibly, and they had been in musical theater schools in high school, American schools that were really amazing. So I had to kind of catch up, because I had only had one teacher up to that point. So I did have insecurities about my voice. My voice to me never has sounded, never has had that typical R&B sound that I always wanted, right? Because when you don't have something, you always want something else. So I had to kind of learn how to put those elements into my music and embrace the sound that I had and kind of get comfortable with it. So I had those insecurities, but I wasn't insecure about myself as a person. I always was rooted in kindness and in trying to be conscious and aware of the present moment and understanding. And with that, I was able to stand in my power kind of in any room under most circumstances. I may have had a few experiences where I felt insecure in my surroundings, but I try to root myself and say everyone is insecure and everyone is thinking about themselves. So you don't intensify it, just kind of open your heart and approach conversations and people with love. So that's always been me. But when I decided to leave LA, I definitely felt like I cared about the wrong things when I made that choice. I cared about which car somebody drove or what we were wearing, or, I was kind of losing myself in that materialism. And I said, your family in New Jersey wouldn't think this is cool of you. So I think I need to go to New York City and really grow my character and be around people and see life for what it is. So that's when I left. I was in LA for 3 years and I made the choice to leave and go to New York, and I moved to New York for 8 years after that.
So in LA, you didn't do any work. How did you financially survive?
I did. I did a few plays after I got out of school. I worked here and there. I've always kind of taken on like secretarial work or, executive assistant work. At the time, it wasn't executive assistant, but it was like secretary or data entry. And then I did some plays. I did Ragtime, which was a play that I did with a community center in Simi Valley, which was like 45 minutes to an hour from Los Angeles. So I'd go there for rehearsals and for the shows. But it was amazing practice to work with those actors and that was kind of my first big production out of school that I worked on. So I was taking gigs, I was auditioning steadily, but I was also every night going out and having fun. So I had a lot of friends who were celebrities and who had, you know, a lot of money and that were doing big things. But then I had to go back to my life at the end of the day or at the end of the night. You know what I mean? So that grounded me and said, whoa, that's not what you want. You want to make your own. So, and I had boyfriends. I mean, people, you know, you're 21, you know, somebody's paying your rent or, you know, buying you food and taking you out on dates. And yeah, so I had a job, but I was doing all right.
Yeah. So how was your experience of being of mixed race in Montreal versus LA versus New York? Did it ever were you ever aware that you were of a mixed race, or was it just business as usual?
No, I was definitely aware. When I was in elementary school, I was the only Black girl up in the whole school, pretty much, or at least in my grade, until grade 6. And then, you know, another Black girl came, and so in high school, there were a lot more Black kids and Indian kids and Asian kids and people from all over the world, you know, but in my elementary school, I was the only one. So I kind of had a few years where, you know, the white girls and guys would date, and I was liking a guy and he liked the white girl. And I said, man, it must be my hair. It's so curly, and it must be, you know, my skin. I'm playing outside and I get ashy from, you know, just scratching on something, or, you know, my skin isn't as glowy as theirs. And I just kind of, my hair was all curly and messy. So I did blame myself, and I said, oh man, you know, I wish I was white, or I wish my hair was like them, or, you know. But then when I went to high school, the Black kids were cool. And then I started to have crushes on the Black boys, and they liked me back after a while, you know, and then I realized, oh, my hair is nice. You know, my Black friends would say, you got good hair, let me braid your hair. And, you know, so my hair was cool now. I don't have to perm it. So that was my experience in Montreal, you know, just growing through my age pretty much. You know, I was called.
Is Montreal comfortable with multiculturalism?
Yes, I am. Absolutely.
Is Montreal?
Oh, is Montreal? I'm sorry, what was your question?
Is Montreal comfortable with multiculturalism?
I'd say yes. The only kind of racism that you'll encounter, and it's a big one, is through getting a job. You know, if you're an English speaker, especially, if you don't speak French, you're going to have a hard time. And and if you're Black, you're going to have an even harder time. I think it's like that everywhere, but yeah, it's like that in Montreal too. I know my father had a tough time, you know, even though he was very, very advanced in IT, he still had a tough time, and he made the sacrifice to live there, and, you know, because he could have probably had a very, very corporate, good paying job if he had stayed in New Jersey or in America. So Montreal, he had to deal with it because you've got that barrier of speaking French, and then on top of it, your race. So
yeah, and he can speak French now, right?
No. 50 years later, no, he cannot. But I'm sure he can hear us. We always make that joke, me and my mom, if we talk about him behind his back, and then he'll say something that we said in the conversation. So he does hear, and, you know, I think he's just, at this point, he's just playing everyone.
Yeah. Okay. And how was it like in LA?
In LA, it was great. I did good. I left my hair curly up until that point. I used to straighten out all the time, but everyone's hair was straight in California, in LA. So I left it curly, and I was, you know, something different, you know. It was like, oh, your hair's curly and look how you look, you know. And so it was exotic in LA, which is funny because you wouldn't think that. You would think it was exotic somewhere else, but not in LA. But in LA, it was exotic, and it was great, and it served me well, you know. And in New York, I mean, I'm beautiful. I know that I am, but everybody is beautiful in New York. Everybody's stylish in New York. So you have to catch people's attention in New York. New York is you know, it's accepting of everybody, and you know, for artists and every ethnicity is, you can be whoever you want to be in New York, which I think is the most beautiful thing about that city and why it's so important in my life. So yeah, so New York, you know, whoever you want to be.
So tell me, you landed in New York. What happened? Where are you from there to now?
So I landed in New York. I got a job working. I lived in Brooklyn and Clinton Hill, and I had just gotten through a bad breakup. So I was staying in the house, and I got a job at a hotel. So I started to do a few years of working at the hotel. And what was I doing with my music? Oh, I came back from LA and was very insecure about my music and about my artistry. I had gone to a party in LA, and I don't know if I was drunk or if I smoked something, but I was just, somebody was like, sing something, and I opened my mouth and I couldn't sing. It was something was wrong. Like I just was stressed out. So then this other girl came and she's like, I knew she couldn't sing, and then she sang and she sounded really good. And so everybody started laughing and making fun of me. And that's like, I'm like 23 and I'm like, this cannot happen to me. I can't believe this. But this was like a nice blow to the ego, like get your stuff together. So I come to New York and I'm like, I am not confident about my singing or myself in the arts. So I got an amazing singing teacher, Meryl Newburn, been studying with her ever since. And she slowly but surely opened my voice back up and gave me the tools to feel confident and to work on my craft and work on my body and work on my, you know, on my music and my writing and myself. You know, because the voice comes from you and you're the vessel, and your head can get in the way. So we worked for a really long time. So while I was doing that, working with her, I wasn't performing. I wasn't doing anything like that. I was just, you know, working on myself. And then I was working at hotels for a while as well. And then I took it upon myself as I found this executive that worked at Black BET and at Viacom, and I sent him a message. He had gone to McGill University in Montreal, and he had worked at BET for 25 years. And I sent him my resume, and I said I would love to be his assistant if he's ever looking for an assistant to hire. And then a few months later, I got a call from his assistant that had been with him for 25 years. And she said she was retiring and that he wanted to see me for a job interview. So I ended up interviewing for BET. I went on like 3 interviews, and I thought for sure I wasn't going to get it because the interview process was so difficult and I was so nervous. But in the end, I got it, and I ended up working corporate for BET for 3 years under a pretty big executive in the advertising department. And during that time, I worked on my first EP with another producer that I had met. So I started to finally work on music and put my writings into songs. So that is how the journey started to now. And yeah, so we're at BET. I made my first EP, and I told myself when I'm working at BET, you know, I was going to all these parties. Now I'm going to the award shows, flying to LA, flying around, having a beautiful time. I have car services. I'm having a great time. But I told myself, don't get comfortable. You can get really comfortable here and you'll stay here and forget about yourself and your music and everything that you worked on. So I told myself I can only be here for 3 years and I'll have it on my resume. And then because working at BET and working under the gentleman that I was working under, I was working 9 to 9 every day, 8 to 10. Weekends, if he needed me to go into the office to do something, I was there. I had a work phone, so I was working nonstop. So it could get very stressful, very demanding, very challenging. So after 3 years, I decided that I had to leave and take care of myself again and start to perform. So when I left, I put a band together and I started to do covers all around New York City. I was performing at different bars, clubs, mingling with the musicians of the city, of the moment. And that is where I got my ultimate confidence.
How were you securing these shows?
So for the first month and a half, we were just rehearsing, and then after that, I had a friend who was an agent, so he put me on a show at SOBs. I opened for Jesse Boykins, this artist Jesse Boykins, and from that show, I got other shows. And then I was sending out my EPK, showing up at bars and clubs, and offering my band to play. And then eventually, we got brunch gigs where we were playing at restaurants for brunches, a 3-hour gig, or bars. So I was just doing the hard work, applying and sending out our work.
Yeah. Was it financially viable?
It was, and I had a package from BET that I was living off of, and this is what I wanted to do for a while. I wanted to, work on my performance. So that's what I did. And yeah, we were making an all right living. I mean, I had roommates, so I didn't need a hell of a lot of money. It wasn't BET money, but it was okay. I was happy because I was performing and I was getting better in what I needed to do. So that was the exchange. But a little while later, I did kind of need more money. So I applied, SoundCloud had an opening, and I applied for SoundCloud as the office manager. And it started out part-time, and it turned into full-time. And I ended up working with SoundCloud for another 3 years. And during that time, SoundCloud was growing. So my office in New York grew from 10 people when I started to about 150 people when I left. And I was the office manager. So I was in charge of catering, the Christmas party, designing the offices. I was the personal assistant to the CEO when he was in town. So I had a really fun job there as well. Traveled to Berlin, to their office in Berlin, and I even had music opportunities. They used my account as a beta account when I first started because they knew that I was a musician putting music out. So they were super supportive, and just like an awesome experience as well. And during my time at SoundCloud, that's when I met my current partner, Govelius, where I started to work on music with him. I had been performing covers up until that point, and I was still performing on the weekends. But I was yearning to kind of make my own music and have my own sound and create something different. So I started to work with my partner Govelius. I had met him through a friend, a mutual friend of ours, and he said, "Man, you guys really need to work together. I think you'd create magic." And that's when we started to work on a more pop R&B sound, and that's the music that you hear from 2016 that I put out, 2017, 2018. Those songs and videos are worked on from us. So
what does music mean to you?
Music is what music means to me is it's my outlet for me personally. It's my outlet to let my voice be heard, but also when I feel like I cannot use words to express how I feel inside or how I feel when I'm looking at the world outside of me, then I can do it through music. So for me, that is that. For others, I hope to use music to inspire, to teach, to educate. Music to me is a tool to speak the same language. I've spoken to people around the world that I would never have spoken to if it wasn't for music. And we understand each other. Even if they don't understand the lyrics or the words that I'm speaking, they can understand my soul through it, or they can understand me. So I feel like it's the great connector. Yeah.
What are the traumas you've been through?
Traumas?
Where have you been suffering in your life?
I think the biggest trauma comes from myself. I think it's the pressure and the expectation that I put on myself that has always been the biggest trauma. Since I was a child, I always have viewed my life as it needs to be meaningful, and there is power in it, and I need to use it, and I need to know what it is, and I need to know where we're going, and I've kind of placed expectations on each part of my life. And so I think in that, it could be very traumatic, especially when you don't accomplish them, or when you look at other people's lives and you compare yourself to other people. I think that could be really traumatic to the experience and the journey that's special to you. So that is the work that I've been doing for the last few years, and that is the work that is continuous, that you have to continue to live in the moment and appreciate your journey and what you bring to the community of humans on this earth. So I'd say that I am in charge of my trauma, and that is the trauma that I've constantly battled.
So who are you? What's your identity right now?
My identity, I don't even know how to answer that. I'm a woman that is continuously evolving and claiming responsibility for my experience, and that is who I am, and encouraging truth and encouraging love, and isn't afraid to have conversations and debates and changing of opinions, and that's where I live. I live in the trust of Source. I am a light, and that is how I feel, that I am part of something bigger. That I am just as important, but a part of something bigger. And so I am bringing my best, and that is pretty much who I am.
So talk to me about that. This idea of something bigger. Do you believe the universe is random or non-random?
No, I don't believe that it's random. There are too many coincidences and too many signs.
What are the signs?
Sometimes it's just a knowing. Sometimes it's just in your heart, or it's goosebumps, or it's a word that corresponds to something that you are feeling, or it's a signal in your ear, or it's nature. All of
How do you know when what you're feeling is true versus it not being true? How do you know when what you're feeling is a sign versus it isn't a sign?
Normally it keeps on repeating itself until I hear the message loud and clear. Normally it'll appear in different people or different things, or sometimes I just know. Sometimes it's just a knowing. Most times it is, it's an overwhelming feeling when you close your eyes. I meditate, and I try to take a lot of moments to myself, and close my eyes, and hear that light, or that voice. And it may not be a voice that you hear like me and you, but it just speaks to you, and it's so hard to explain, but you just know.
Okay. So you said that the universe is not random, which means it's by design.
Mm-hmm.
If it's by design, nothing is ever designed for no reason. So what's our design? What's the design for the human?
Well, I think in human form, and I think on this planet, I think we're here to educate our souls. I think we're here as an education planet, and I think for humans, it's just the vessel for our souls to kind of evolve and be able to feel sensations, and to feel a certain experience that perhaps we wouldn't feel if we were light, or souls without a body, because we wouldn't be kind of focused. So I think it's awareness.
What is the soul?
The soul, well, the soul and the spirit, but the soul is it just is, and it's the highest part of you, and it's the best part of you, and it is you in truth. without the ego, without the characters, without the body.
What's the spirit?
Spirit is, I believe, spirit is part of your character. Yeah, and I believe spirit is well, that I don't know.
Where do you get your doctrines from? Do you follow what your parents pursued, or do you have your own theories? How have you developed your reasoning on the meaning of life?
No, my parents, well, my parents weren't very religious. My mother grew up Catholic, and so did I. But we weren't big churchgoers. I would go to church with my grandmother. She would go every Sunday, so I would go every once in a while with her. And my father has his own philosophies, and they are closer to living a spiritual life and living a life that is conscious and aware more so, and healing more so than a religion. My philosophies have come from Sufi knowledge. They've come from Buddhism. They've come from different books that I've read throughout the years. They've come from my heart. They've come from messages. They've come from Wicca. They've come from inspiration, from music, and from so it's a pagan religion, and basically, you know, it working with the elements of earth and water and fire and air. So you're basically working with the elements of the world and of spirit of the earth, and basically using your energy and your light to manifest things in the human realm, or in the earth realm.
What is Sufism?
So Sufism has a lot of philosophies that are about, once again, just living a life of being conscious and being aware, and a life of kindness and consequence, and the good. Whatever you put out into the world is what you'll get back, and those are the philosophies that I live my life by. And a lot of different religions or different spiritual masters have spoken about that. But for me, it's really just bringing the best part of who I am and living in that truth, and being aware and being conscious, and being a living presence, you know.
Do you pray?
I do. Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that?
How do I pray? Well, I meditate. And when I meditate, I normally start off with going over my day, or going over whatever is on my mind, so that I can stop thinking about it. And while I'm doing that, I also, you know, thank Source, and thank the universe, and thank my angels and my ancestors, and speak to them, and listen, and encourage love, and kind of ask for the things that I don't know, and answers, and I visualize a lot, and I think that's like praying, and I visualize what could be, and what I'd love for it to be, and I visualize how it is, you know. So all of those things to me is praying. I pray when I'm looking at a tree, or when I'm playing with my ducks or the lizards outside, and I get an overwhelming feeling of love and joy, and I pray then, and I say thank you. So I think gratefulness is the biggest thing that you can encourage in your life. And I think that I'm always looking for moments to be grateful when I have a beautiful meal in front of me, and I give thanks. So it comes randomly, it comes often, and it's not organized and it's not perfect, but it's true.
So tell me, like, you said you are pretty visual and directed. What does your future look like? Uh, how do you see yourself at age 60? Paint me a picture of age 60. What does that look like?
I am a much more knowledgeable gardener, and I uh, provide with food, the food that I have as knowledge, and the food that I have physically. I want to build a place where I can house humans and animals and wildlife and trees, and build a sanctuary. I want to protect children. So I want to be at a point, I think, at 60 where I have more answers than I do now. That my sensitivity is even more heightened, where my ego is so small that it doesn't get into my daily life, and I just want to continue to evolve into a person that is going to be able to serve humankind and the overall world that will inevitably be there in 30 years. So that's who I want to be. But I want peace and serenity also. I want to live in nature and continue to make music, and and continue to live a life that is purposeful.
So if the universe is non-random and it's by design and there's a higher power, what benefit does our existence serve that higher power?
Mm.
Why put us into existence?
Mm-hmm.
Truth.
Well, I think probably to acquire knowledge and wisdom. I mean, if you are,
why would you create a system where you invent human beings to acquire knowledge and truth? What does that serve you by you doing that?
perhaps that you or that person who created it all needs to acquire that wisdom, and it maybe to fulfill love, or to fulfill to experiences, or to be able to live and experience life. I mean, you have, if you're that big of a person and you're everything, then wouldn't that be lonely, or wouldn't that be complete? Wouldn't you want?
But I would conceive the concept of loneliness. So it's my decision to decide if I want to conceive that concept of loneliness. Do you know what I'm saying? Loneliness is from a human perspective.
But if you're God, right? If each individual is a piece of God, or is a piece of source, then the God has already agreed to be human. If God is a ball of light and we are all little lights, that, there's a big ball of light, and then we're all just pieces of God, little lights. He's already agreed to become these little lights and to learn. So I'd say it's a tough question, but I'd say that we are God. It's not that we didn't have a choice, but he made the choice, and we are him or her or it. So we've already agreed. We just may not remember that we agreed, but we agreed, and we are all living our.
But if you haven't remembered that you've agreed, how can you know that you've agreed?
I don't know. It's a feeling. It's you see it on, if you pay attention, you see, this is why this happened. This must have been why. And this, just because you don't remember a childhood trauma doesn't mean it didn't happen and it hasn't shaped you, but you still you may not remember it. So it's, you know, I think it's a tough one, but I that is what I believe, you know.
Is what you believe or what you feel?
What I feel. Yeah, but I think belief is flaky, but I use it anyway. But I think that is what I feel, definitely, and that is what I live by. But I also do believe that there is a war going on. You know, I don't believe that it is a perfect system, and I do believe that there is a war going on that we can't see, but we can now feel. I think 2020 is a revelation of that. I think that artificial intelligence is high up on that war. And I think that it's everywhere around us, everywhere that we look. And I think that artificial intelligence may be the actual real devil. It may not be, you know, this guy with horns or just an energy. I think it's an actual power. And I'm looking more into that. But I do see signs of artificial intelligence kind of being at war with nature, you know, and I think that that's the true war that we're witnessing.
So is evolution part of nature?
Is evolution part of nature? Yes.
So AI is part of the evolvement of nature.
Yes.
So would it not just be AI speaking itself, or nature just speaking itself?
Yes. But I also do believe that there are cancers that, you know, are in this world, or we may be one of them. I think that everything needs to be worked on in balance. And when something wants to have all of the power or take over, then it becomes a problem. And I think that nature doesn't do that. Nature works in balance, but it can create things that aren't working in balance.
Would the you know, Homo sapien not be the enemy of the previous expression of a human being?
No.
What I'm saying is, you know, if you look at it from that perspective, then, you know, we're not, we believe we're in a better position than, you know, Cro-Magnon or some previous version of, you know, a human being.
Mm-hmm.
So isn't that just normal? Isn't that just a progression of evolution? That
it seems so, absolutely. I talk about that with friends of mine about you know, Caucasians being the superior race, or them thinking they're the superior race, and being in charge.
Well, to think you're superior and be superior, they're two separate things.
Right, of course. but they think that they are, so they run the world. No, it doesn't mean that they are at all. They run corporate. They run the Federal Reserve. They run the world right now. But if it was turned around and Black people were on top and running the world, would we act the same? You know, how does the superior race is the superior?
Yeah, I don't think I don't think it would make any difference, to be very honest with you, because I don't think humans are related to a particular type of color, but a particular way of thinking, perhaps.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's just have a few quick questions. Introvert or extrovert? Which one are you?
Right down the middle. I'm an extrovert one-on-one, and I'm an extrovert in my music, but I'm an introvert when it comes to being around big crowds, or I can work the room, but I like to work it one-on-one. And I'm an introvert in that I love being in solitude, and I don't need a lot of people around me, and I'd rather kind of be to myself and be in my thoughts.
Idealist or realist?
Idealist.
Emotional or rational?
More on the emotional side, probably because of the feels that the feeling, and I work with my heart, but the heart can also be rational in its own way, but
Yeah.
emotional.
Okay. Are you practical or intellectual?
I'd say practical.
And do you like risk, or are you risk averse?
I like risk.
Uncertainty or certainty?
Uncertainty.
Okay. And if you were an animal, what kind of animal would you describe yourself as?
Um, hmm. Uh, I'd be a bird. I'd fly around and I'd be in different people's conversations. I like to listen and I like to observe and I like to watch, and I also like to sing. So I'd say a bird.
I mean, eagle or kingfisher? I mean, duck or a swan? What kind of bird would you be? Like, give me three characteristics of a bird you'd want to have.
Um, hmm, Probably a parrot because they're really smart and they can impress the humans. Um, a cockatiel and a maybe an eagle.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what would be the qualities of an eagle you possess?
Um, I'm patient, and yeah, I'm really patient, and I can wait for what I want.
It's a very good quality. Um, what do you want to talk about?
Um, well, I definitely want to make sure that I mention that I have a my first EP coming out on August 14th. I've created 5 songs for this EP that I'm really proud of. These are my first songs that I've musically produced myself with the help of my partner with mixing it, and he added his little features to it. But I'm really proud of that, and I've been recording myself, and so I feel that these songs are truly me and how I wanted to approach them. They're 100% written by me, and I feel like this is the project that I'm really just most proud of. So I'm really excited about that, and yeah, just yeah, I feel like I've said everything that I could possibly have thought about or said with you.
You sure you haven't left anything out?
I'm sure I have, but yeah, I wish every conversation was this fun and enlightening. And next time I'll have to explore how you think and you feel, and talk to you because I'd be really excited to hear about how you feel about life and your philosophies.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of these interviews I've done on IGTV, and I'll be posting them on YouTube as well. So it's fascinating to see everybody's journey, and I thoroughly, encourage people to look at the videos and see the meaning of life as I'm trying to seek uh, the different meanings that are possible or available. Final question: they say you're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with. So, in a kind of fantasy scenario, if you had a choice of 5 people that you could hang out with to raise your average, past, present, or future, who would those 5 people be that you'd want to hang out with?
Um, Definitely Nina Simone. Oh, first, let Lena Horne. Let's put her first. Her grace and her class is uh, just incredible up until she was in her 90s, and the power that she possessed from her small frame. So I was named after her, and I would definitely want to embody her grace and class, right? So Nina Simone for her power and her fearlessness to stand up against the status quo, and that voice and that power. Um, Goodness. Uh, Oh man, there's so many people.
You're going with your feelings, right?
Oh my goodness, so many names are running through my head, but I don't want to say too many musicians. I've got to say, like, you know what? Probably my grandmother. I would have loved to have been able to be my age for a little longer around her on my father's side. I think that she would have been able to kind of instill more of her stories onto me, and her strength as a woman, as a Black woman raising men in the 40s and 50s. I would have really loved to experience more of her in my life. And I'll probably say my father. I know he's around me, but not often enough. And his strength. I go for people that are really strong and that have just lived lives that I couldn't imagine. So that I can embody their strength and their stories. And then I'd say, gosh. I don't. You put me on the spot here. Uh, I don't want to say anybody too typical.
Why not?
Because I just feel like after I get off, I'm gonna be like, dang, why didn't you think a little longer and name this person? But I'll say Jay-Z for his lyrical content and for his approach to owning your own masters, his approach to the music industry and where he came from and where he is now. And I'd say, yeah, that's a good amount of people. Pretty much all musicians.
Cool. Any final message before we conclude?
Just continue to live in your truth, continue to create art and manifest the life that you want to live, and be kind to people. I think that's the biggest thing we can do is be there for humans and understand and be kind.
Awesome. So listen, thank you so much for your time and for hanging out with me.
Thank you.
And I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank
No
you.
worries. Take care. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.